The movies lied to you about Frodo Baggins, not through omission, not through artistic license, through complete narrative misdirection. Peter Jackson's trilogy presents Frodo as a wide-eyed young hobbit thrust into sudden adventure. Innocent, unprepared, corrupted only by the journey itself.
You're late.
A wizard is never late, Frodo Baggins. Nor is he early. He arrives precisely when he means to.
The truth Tolkien wrote is far darker. Frodo was 50 years old when he left the Shire, and he had already been carrying the ring for 17 years. The psychological damage didn't begin on the road to Mordor. It began the moment Bilbo placed that cursed thing in his hand. By the time the quest started, the ring had already been eating him alive. In Fellowship of the Ring, Tolkien writes,
He found himself wondering at times, especially in the autumn, about the wild lands and strange visions of mountains that he had never seen came into his dreams.
In the films, Bilbo's 11th birthday party flows directly into Frodo's departure. Gandalf discovers the ring's true nature, panics, and rushes Frodo out of the Shire within what feels like days. The editing, the pacing, the urgency. It all screams immediate danger and immediate action.
Keep it secret. Keep it safe.
Frodo seems young because he looks young, acts young, and the story moves too fast to suggest otherwise. Tolkien's timeline destroys that illusion completely. Frodo Baggins was born in 2968 of the Third Age. Bilbo's farewell party happened in 3001. Simple math puts Frodo at 33 years old during that celebration, the exact age hobbits reach maturity, their equivalent of turning 21. But the quest to destroy the ring didn't begin in 3001. It began in 3018, 17 years later. In Fellowship of the Ring, Tolkien writes,
He had indeed privately made up his mind to leave on his 50th birthday, Bilbo's 128th. It seemed somehow the proper day on which to set out and follow him. Following Bilbo was uppermost in his mind, and the one thing that made the thought of leaving bearable. He thought as little as possible about the ring and where it might lead him in the end.
17 years of living with the ring in Bag End. 17 years of its whispers, its weight, its slow corrosive influence seeping into his mind. By the time Frodo finally walked out of the Shire, he was 50 years old, not a young adventurer, a middle-aged hobbit already scarred by something he didn't fully understand.
I wish the ring had never come to me. I wish none of this had happened.
The ring preserves those who carry it. Bilbo wore it for 60 years and barely aged. Gollum stretched across centuries, sustained by its power. Frodo experienced the same effect. The Shire noticed. In the Fellowship of the Ring, Tolkien writes that people remarked on Frodo's appearance, how he seemed preserved, almost untouched by time, exactly as Bilbo had been. But preservation isn't protection. The ring doesn't grant youth. It suspends decay while accelerating something far worse. In Chapter 2 of Fellowship of the Ring, Gandalf describes the psychological toll with brutal clarity. He tells Frodo that for those who possess the ring, even without using it,
the years seem not to add to your age, yet they are added nonetheless in other ways. You may become weary of the burden and feel it as an intolerable weight.
Bilbo explained in simpler word when he said,
I feel thin, sort of stretched, like butter scraped over too much bread.
Frodo himself later reflects on this, admitting that every year with the ring made him feel as though every minute was a weariness. 17 years of that weariness, 17 years of feeling time pressed down on him even as his face stayed smooth. The movies never show you this Frodo, the one who spent nearly 2 decades as the ring's quiet prisoner, aging invisibly under its influence while the Shire went about its business. By the time the Black Riders arrived, the damage was already catastrophic. The film compresses Bilbo's party and Frodo's departure into a single emotional beat.
Hold out your hand, Frodo. It's quite cool. What can you see?
There were markings.
Gandalf storms back into the Shire, tests the ring in the fireplace, sees the inscription burn into view, and immediately understands the danger. He tells Frodo to leave. Frodo packs. Sam gets caught eavesdropping. They're on the road within a scene or two. Tolkien's version is agonizingly slow. After Bilbo's party, Gandalf didn't panic. He suspected. He had questions, decades worth of questions about Bilbo's ring, about Gollum's riddles, about the darkness stirring in Mordor. So he left, he searched, he read ancient texts, consulted with Saruman, tracked rumors across Middle-earth, pieced together fragments of history buried for millennia. This wasn't a weekend research trip. Gandalf spent years investigating. In Fellowship of the Ring, Tolkien writes,
It was over 9 years since Frodo had seen or heard of him, and he had begun to think that the wizard would never return and had given up all interest in hobbits. But that evening, as Sam was walking home and twilight was fading, there came the once familiar tap on the study window. Frodo welcomed his old friend with surprise and great delight. They looked hard at one another. "All well, eh?" said Gandalf. "You look the same as ever, Frodo."
The chapter, The Shadow of the Past, makes this explicit. Gandalf tells Frodo, "I have spent most of the time since Bilbo left trying to discover the truth about this ring. He didn't stay in the Shire. He couldn't. The answers weren't there. He rode to Gondor, studied the scrolls of Isildur, confirmed the ring's identity through painstaking historical detective work. Only then, years later, did he return to Bag End with certainty." During those years, Frodo waited. He lived alone in Bag End. He carried the ring every single day. He didn't use it, Tolkien makes that clear, but he possessed it. He felt its presence. He endured its weight. Gandalf's absences stretched longer and longer. The Shire remained peaceful on the surface, but Frodo grew quieter, stranger, more withdrawn. His friends noticed, the neighbors whispered, something about Bilbo's air didn't sit right. In Fellowship of the Ring, Tolkien writes,
As time went on, people began to notice that Frodo also showed signs of good preservation. Outwardly, he retained the appearance of a robust and energetic hobbit just out of his tweens. "Some folk have all the luck," they said. But it was not until Frodo approached the usually more sober age of 50 that they began to think it queer.
When Gandalf finally returned in April 3018, he didn't bring comfort. He brought confirmation. The ring was the one ring. Sauron was searching for it. The Black Riders were coming. And Frodo, who had been living with this cursed object for 17 years, now had to run. The quest didn't interrupt Frodo's peaceful life. It ended his long, invisible suffering. By the time he left the Shire, he wasn't an innocent being corrupted by adventure. He was already corrupted, already worn down, already halfway broken. The films give us a young fellowship. Frodo, Sam, Merry, and Pippin all seem roughly the same age. Young adults, maybe, but presented without clear distinction. Their behavior feels consistent with typical adventure story protagonists. Brave, naive, reckless in equal measure. The books draw sharp lines. Sam was 38 when the quest began. Merry was 36. Both were mature hobbits, well past the coming-of-age threshold of 33. Their decisions, Sam's loyalty, Merry's strategic thinking, make sense within that context. They weren't children playing at adventure. They were grown men who understood consequences. Pippin was 28. In Hobbit terms, that made him a literal child. Not metaphorically young, not immature by personality. Actually, biologically, culturally, not yet an adult. Hobbits don't reach full maturity until 33, and Pippin hadn't crossed that line. He was the equivalent of a human teenager, old enough to be dangerous, too young to fully grasp danger. Every reckless decision Pippin makes in the story suddenly clicks into focus. In Moria, he knocks a skeleton down a well, alerting the orcs to the Fellowship's presence.
Fool of a took! Throw yourself in next time and rid us of your stupidity.
In the Two Towers, he looks into the Palantir despite Gandalf's warnings, directly contacting Sauron's mind. The films play these moments for comedy or tension, but they never explain why Pippin keeps making catastrophically bad choices. Tolkien did. Pippin was a kid. The Palantir scene is the clearest example. After the victory at Helm's Deep, Gandalf retrieves the Seeing Stone from Saruman's tower. He knows its danger. He warns the others. He wraps it carefully and tries to keep it hidden. But Pippin's curiosity overwhelms him. Late at night, while the camp sleeps, he sneaks over to Gandalf, steals the Palantir, and looks into it. In The Two Towers, Tolkien describes Pippin's thought process with devastating clarity.
He felt very curious to know what it was, and he began to wonder whether he could look into it.
Not whether he should, whether he could. The impulse control of someone who hasn't fully developed judgment yet. The consequence is immediate and horrifying. Sauron's mind crashes into Pippin's. The young hobbit screams. Gandalf has to intervene, severing the connection before Sauron extracts useful information. Pippin survives, but barely, and the entire trajectory of the war shifts because a 28-year-old couldn't resist the urge to peek. The movies soften this. They make Pippin lovable, goofy, comic relief. The books make him tragic, a child in a war he was never ready for, surrounded by adults who couldn't protect him from his own inexperience.
This is no place for a hobbit!
The films present Bilbo's discovery of the ring as mysterious but morally neutral. He found it in the dark. He used it to escape. The details don't matter much because the focus stays on the present, the ring's current danger, not its origin. Tolkien made the origin everything. In The Hobbit, Bilbo's account of how he acquired the ring is a lie. He tells everyone, Gandalf included, that he won it fair and square in a riddle contest with Gollum. When Gollum couldn't answer Bilbo's final riddle, "What have I got in my pocket?" he conceded defeat and gave Bilbo the ring as a prize. Clean, honorable, earned through cleverness. In Fellowship of the Ring, Tolkien writes,
Gandalf, however, disbelieved Bilbo's first story as soon as he heard it, and he continued to be very curious about the ring. Eventually, he got the true tale out of Bilbo after much questioning, which for a while strained their friendship. But the wizard seemed to think the truth important. Though he didn't say so to Bilbo, he also thought it important and disturbing to find that the good hobbit had not told the truth from the first, quite contrary to his habit.
What actually happened is that Bilbo found the ring lying on the ground in Gollum's cave. He pocketed it. When Gollum realized the ring was missing, he panicked and tried to attack. Bilbo, wearing the ring and invisible, escaped by blind luck. He didn't win anything. He stole it, and then he lied about it. Why does this matter? Because the ring made him lie.
Oh, my old ring. I should very much like to hold it again one last time.
Gandalf explains this to Frodo in the chapter The Shadow of the Past. He tells him that Bilbo's false story was the first sign of the ring's influence. The ring wanted to be found. It wanted to move from Gollum to Bilbo to someone else, always closer to its master. And it protected itself by making Bilbo obscure its origins. Gandalf says,
"A ring of power looks after itself, Frodo. It may slip off treacherously, but its keeper never abandons it." Bilbo's story was not true.
By the time Frodo inherited the ring, this corrupting influence had been working on his family for decades. Bilbo's lie became Frodo's inheritance, and the ring immediately began working on Frodo the same way. The proof comes early in the same chapter. After Gandalf confirms the ring's identity, he tells Frodo they need to test it. He asks Frodo to throw the ring into the fireplace so the inscription will appear. Frodo picks up the ring. He holds it, he moves toward the fire, and he hesitates. In Fellowship of the Ring, Tolkien writes,
Frodo drew the ring out of his pocket again and looked at it. It now appeared plain and smooth, without mark or device that he could see. The gold looked very fair and pure, and Frodo thought how rich and beautiful was its colour, how perfect was its roundness. It was an admirable thing and altogether precious. When he took it out, he had intended to fling it from him into the very hottest part of the fire, but he found now that he couldn't do so, not without a great struggle.
The language drips with the ring's influence. Admirable, altogether precious. These aren't Frodo's natural thoughts. This is the ring speaking through him, making him desire it, making him protective. Gandalf has to snap him out of it, practically commanding him to throw the ring into the flames. Frodo obeys, but the hesitation is there. The corruption is already present. This happens in Bag End, in the safety of the Shire, with Gandalf standing right beside him. If the ring could grip Frodo this tightly in the most secure moment of his life, what chance did he have on the road to Mordor? The answer is none. The ring already owned him. It had owned him for 17 years. The quest was never about whether Frodo could resist corruption. It was about how long he could delay the inevitable. The movies don't lie about Frodo's age because they're malicious. They lie because film demands visual clarity. Elijah Wood looked young. The pacing felt urgent. Audiences needed emotional momentum, not historical footnotes. So the films compressed timelines, simplified ages, and turned Frodo's slow psychological disintegration into a clean hero's journey. But Tolkien didn't write a hero's journey. He wrote a tragedy. Frodo was 50 years old. He carried the ring for 17 years before the quest began. He was already worn, already compromised, already losing the battle against the ring's whispers by the time he set foot outside the Shire. Pippin was a child. Sam and Merry were the only true adults among the hobbits, and the ring's influence started with Bilbo's first lie, passed down through inheritance, embedding itself deeper with every passing year. The journey to Mordor didn't corrupt Frodo. It revealed the corruption that had been growing inside him since 3001. Every moment of hesitation, every flash of possessiveness, every time he touched the ring and felt its pull, that wasn't the road breaking him. That was 17 years of invisible damage finally surfacing. By the time Frodo stood at the cracks of doom, he had been the ring's prisoner for nearly 2 decades. The fact that he made it that far isn't a testament to his strength, it's a testament to his endurance. He didn't fail at Mount Doom. He lasted longer than anyone else possibly could have. The movies gave us a corrupted hero. Tolkien gave us a survivor who had been dying from the inside out since the story began. Understanding that difference changes everything.